Hey, audience, welcome to episode 24 of the Morris InterVarsity Podcast. The goal of this podcast is to spread the good news of Jesus Christ. We hope you enjoy the episode. Let's get started. Yeah, in the Lutheran church I grew up in, um, it like Holy Week or whatever it's called. Yeah, we call it Maundy Thursday, or what? I don't know if that like means the same thing, but it's not like it's not Monday Thursday. It's like Maunday
Okay.
Thursday. I think. But yeah, Good Friday. I don't know what Saturday is called. Holy Saturday,
Oh, so I
maybe.
think it's just
Yeah,
Holy Saturday.
and then Easter, of course,
Yeah.
Resurrection Sunday or whatever. But yeah, so I am kind of used to, like, we do talk about Lent in like the Lutheran Church, at least like the traditional ones or the one I grew up in, LCMS, Lutheran Church, Missouri Synod or whatever. That's like the whatever, there's different like Lutheran churches,
Yeah.
but yeah, so we do talk about Lent, and I think people do sometimes give up things like for Lent and like the Lutheran church or like other Protestant churches, of course, but definitely like the fasting, I would say there's not as much of that in like Protestantism, at least from what I've seen.
Yeah.
But yeah, um,
I know that sometimes people do them like a spiritual fast.
yeah,
I know that at the beginning of the year, I was at a service. I was in Alabama at the time, and the pastor was talking about how everyone should fast for the first month of the new year. And it wasn't a fast in the sense that I was used to in Catholicism, where it's, you just abstain from eating. He was talking about a spiritual fast where you cut out all of the things that are prohibiting you from being close to Jesus. So if it's, oh, you go on your phone too much during the day, well, limit your screen time. Or he did talk about some eating, like dieting fasts, but they were more for dieting so that you can feel better to be a better evangelist or etc. But we think of fasting as more like you're giving up that food because you're showing Jesus your commitment, kind of. So yeah, they have like spiritual fasts, but I don't think that they're as common. And I think they're more, there's not a select time where people do it. It's just,
yeah.
I want to do this now, so I'm going to do it right now.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about like, I don't know, there's some things like you talked about I want to bring back up, but
Yeah.
like the spiritual fasting, like yeah, I don't know if you can really call it like fasting if it's
Right.
not food, but
Yeah, I don't
again,
know
like
either,
I am
but
not like a biblical scholar, or
me
like
neither.
I haven't dove into this far enough to really like be able to say that with like, yeah, this is truth.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I think the spiritual fast is more like you're just giving up some things so
Yeah.
that you can feel closer to him, or giving up that coffee
Yeah.
every day because you could be giving that money to the church,
Mm.
or giving up watching your favorite TV show so that you can spend more time in community with people or things like that. So, but
Yeah, and then you talked about like the basically like communion, how it's like you'd say it's like beautiful in like every church, or the way like every church views it. And yeah, I don't know, it's like, I guess if it really, right, if it really is like the body and blood of Christ, then like, yeah, I guess a lot of churches aren't doing it correctly. And
yeah,
then at that point it's like, well, like then are you actually like partaking in it, and like communion at
yeah,
that point. But no, yeah, that is because like in the Lutheran church, um I grew up believing it was the body and blood,
right.
because I did have to go through confirmation
And
for two
first
years.
communion.
Yeah, I did have the first communion. I drank from the chalice, and then I did have the bread. Like I had to wear like a white robe and everything. And so like, yeah, it's still very traditional, at least in like certain Lutheran churches. But
Yeah.
yeah, I did grow up believing that. And um like with baptism, like
Yeah.
we believe in like infant baptisms.
Right.
And
Catholicism is the same way,
yeah,
because it's releasing you of your original sin that you were born with. So it cleanses you of that original sin so that you can move forward and be forgiven of your sins from that point on.
Okay.
So that's kind of how we view baptism. And
Okay.
I know that baptism in the evangelical free church is completely different. That's
Yeah.
your commitment to Jesus.
Yeah. So, yeah, because I don't know, I recently talked to somebody and they're like, yeah, you should get rebaptized, or basically they said like I wasn't baptized because
Yeah.
I was actually baptized as a baby. So
Me too.
they were saying like, yeah, you should. They were like, yeah, like they said the words over you, but it didn't work because like you were a baby.
Yeah, you weren't like a
You didn't make the choice for
consenting
yourself.
individual.
Yeah.
But I think that in both of our faiths, they do that in a different way. Like I think confirmation is your saying I'm following Jesus.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just because there's no water involved doesn't make it any less legitimate. Like I think that that's our confirmation of, yes, I'm a follower of Jesus. Now that I'm an adult and can make decisions for myself, that's what I'm saying. I'm following Jesus. And that's you confirming your faith. That's why it's called confirmation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where I think, like, in our beliefs, baptism means a different thing.
But yeah, you said something else. I don't know. We're so far in, I forgot.
Yeah, no, that's
But
okay.
no, I'm sure we do disagree on some things. I'm sure you said something. I was like, but yeah, I don't know. I guess like when you're talking about politics, like, yeah, I think like, of course, main focus like gospel, main focus Bible and church, but yeah, I don't know. It's just like, right, if Jesus Christ is like ultimate truth, then like we do have this standard of the Bible.
Right.
Like everybody really should be like on the same page with everything. But like, yeah, I know the political stuff gets like weird. You know what I'm saying?
And politics just feel very worldly to me.
Yeah.
And that's where I get confused why we're bringing the world into the church, because the church is where we come to be in community with heaven and God rather than be connected in the world.
Yeah.
Like, just because we don't all believe the same things in the world doesn't mean that we don't believe the same things spiritually.
Yeah.
And so I just kind of get confused when we bring worldly things into the spiritual place.
No, I get that. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I guess like Christians should be more on the same page, I guess, like politically. But
I understand the need for it, like
yeah,
talking about it so that you're all kind of in the same place, but I feel like every Sunday is kind of a stretch for me.
Oh, like you were hearing it like every Sunday?
Every Sunday.
Oh, wow.
Or like every other, because he switched parishes, so he would go
okay.
to a different one sometimes.
Okay.
But it was like every Sunday. And it wasn't the same thing every Sunday, but it was very similar.
Okay.
But I don't know.
Yeah, I guess like what we believe should like play out in our lives, and that should affect like what we do and things like that. But yeah, I mean, definitely like no candidate is perfect or like any of that. So yeah, if anybody wants to argue like, oh, there's this perfect candidate, well, that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I'm trying to remember what you said. You said something. I don't know.
Was it about saints?
No. Like, I'm like, what am I supposed to say about that? Really? Like, well, actually, when I didn't like really notice growing up, but when I went back to like my Lutheran church back home, like when we talked about like the Gospels or whatever, the pastor referred to like the Gospel of Saint Mark, Saint Luke, or whatever. So I did actually pick up on that. I was like, okay, so I do see the similarities, you know, between Lutheranism and Catholicism. I don't know. I guess I didn't notice before.
Yeah.
Or maybe that was like they just recently like added that into the way they like went about stuff. But
I think that in Lutheranism, it's just those four. The four gospel writers are the saints.
Okay.
I'm not sure that they would recognize like Anthony as a saint or Mother Teresa as a saint.
Yeah, probably not. Yeah.
But they probably talk about them as saints because they wrote the gospel.
Yeah.
They shared the story of Jesus.
Yeah. That makes sense. But and then I think I did notice like I think at least my Lutheran church or like Lutheranism, the pastor can forgive sins. Actually, I think I did pick up on that, like God through the pastor,
Yep.
not the pastor by himself. But I think I did pick up on that because I actually took Ethan to my church.
Yeah, he was
So
telling me about
yeah, so he said he liked it. I hope that's true. But
it.
no, because I mean it is traditional. Like, right, people aren't
Yeah.
used to that traditional stuff, and like we were
And it can
singing
be
hymns.
scary.
Yeah, we were singing hymns. It was basically like the Catholic Church here. Like it was pretty similar.
Yeah.
Like because we did have like the outline
Yep.
or whatever, and yeah, everything's just very organized.
Yeah.
So
I know Noelle came to the Catholic Church with me one Sunday, and she was just like taking it all in because it's so wildly different from what she was used to. So she was like, "Oh," and we have a lot of like organized prayer where the whole church responds at the same exact time. So if you don't know them and you're just sitting there, you're like, what am I supposed to be saying? And then you stand, and then you kneel, and then you sit, and then you stand, and then you kneel, and you sit, and then you're like trying to juggle all of this. So she had an outline, so she at least knew kind of where we were at in the service or like what she was supposed to be saying. But it's a little intimidating at first when you first come in for the first time. You're like, what is going on?
yeah, well, I went to Duluth. Well, I told you I went to Father like Mike Schmitz,
Love him.
his mass. Father Mike Schmitz, very popular Catholic priest. If you look up Mike Schmitz on YouTube,
You can see his talks.
he does like Bible in a Year podcast. He makes videos. He's like actually he's got a lot of clout online actually.
He's made videos for different religious ed programs.
Yeah.
So when you're going through your like religious ed workbook, there are videos of him that go along with it.
Yeah.
So that's how I know of him, is he was like the face on the screen for all of my childhood. I think meeting him would scare me. I would be like, oh my gosh, you're real.
Well, I actually did meet him, so
I know, that's crazy.
I did meet him. I have a picture with him with like Jake, Kenny, Callista, Joe too, and then we actually brought like an international student, Akira.
Oh, you did bring Akira? That's
Yeah,
awesome.
so we were basically like evangelizing to him.
Yeah.
So, which was good. We gave him like a study Bible. Like we didn't give him a Catholic Bible, we gave him like a study Bible.
Yeah.
Just start out, you know.
Right, yeah.
But yeah, so I guess like Newman centers are kind of like the Catholic ministry houses like in towns, because there's a Newman Center in Morris, and then there's a Newman Center right outside UMD in Duluth, and Father Mike does mass there, or like
that's awesome.
yeah, so he like leads it, and we like the day we got there, I think we went, and then we it was like the mass was way different than here.
Yeah.
Like there was like everything was like in Latin, like yeah, it was like very Latin mass. Like everybody else in the room like knew like what to say, like when to kneel, when to stand, like when to do the signs. And I was actually like pretty intimidated.
Yeah,
So,
it's scary sometimes.
Cause like I was already intimidated going to the Catholic Church in Morris, but like the the mass and like at UMD was way different. At least at the Newman Center at UMD, it was like very like I was like intimidated the whole time, and it was like hot in the room too.
That doesn't help.
I was like sweating, like everybody speaking in Latin. I'm like, what's going on?
I don't understand anything that's going on.
No, it was the homily, right?
Yep.
The homily was good, like basically the message of the sermon, kind of. No, Father Mike Schmitz, super well spoken. Yeah. And he's not like super old or anything.
No, he's really young, and I think that's why he connects so well with young people, and why he made the religious ed videos is because he is young.
Yeah.
It's easier to take those words from somebody who's just turned 25 rather than an 80-year-old man who you're like, well, you don't understand because we have all these new things now, and like so it's a lot easier to take that message from him than it is an 80-year-old person.
Yeah. No, he is super well spoken, and right, even if you're not a Catholic, like his videos will definitely be like helpful for sure. Or if you want to just learn about things, definitely go look him up on YouTube or wherever. But yeah, no, that was definitely a cool experience. Yeah, but it was definitely, I mean, I don't know if you're watching this video and you think like, oh, like Catholics aren't Christian or blah 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 or whatever, literally like mass, like m- literally the whole point of mass is like for Jesus.
Yeah.
Like it is literally centered around Jesus Christ because
Mhm.
it's like right basically his centered around like taking his body and blood like the Eucharist or whatever. So literally like Catholic services are like focused on Jesus. Like Jesus like is the focus of like the services.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
I guess if anybody wants to argue like Catholics aren't, you know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
you know what people say.
No, I've heard those
Yeah.
arguments that they're well, and I feel like a lot of the time with Catholics specifically, they're kind of closed off from all the other forms of Christianity
Yeah.
because they're like, oh, well, we branched off from Catholicism because it was bad. But it wasn't Catholicism itself that was bad. It was the people in Catholicism that made it bad. Like back when Martin Luther started Lutheranism.
Yeah.
It was because people in the Catholic Church were asking people to give them money to forgive their sins or so that their person could go to heaven. But now it's like the ideals that they had are still the same that the Lutherans have, but the people in the Catholic Church just weren't great. And now we've gone through generations and that idea still kind of stands. Like I had friends in high school who were Lutheran and they were like, "You're Catholic? Like Catholics suck." And I'm like, "No, those Catholic people sucked. They asked
Yeah.
people for money for things that they shouldn't have." But just because they did that doesn't mean that Catholicism is built on this terrible foundation because it's not. It still has a great foundation, but sometimes the people in Catholicism misconstrue what Catholicism really means.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I guess some people would probably argue with you about like the Reformation stuff
Yeah.
or like I mean, right
Or
there.
like purgatory.
Yeah, there. Oh, that is a different one.
Yeah.
That is one that I'd say like the Mary like emphasis on Mary threw me off.
Mm-hmm.
Purgatory threw me off. The saint like the venerating stuff kind of threw me off a
Yeah.
bit, but like that's probably the main stuff that threw me off.
Yeah.
Like the Eucharist belief doesn't really throw me off
Because you had that background.
because I do have that background. I don't know. Sometimes I kind of feel like I waver on like what I like actually believe about like the Eucharist or like baptism now, just because I do have these other like
yeah, you've been exposed.
yeah,
to
I do have these
ideas.
other
Yeah.
influences and yeah, but I guess like I don't know. I guess it seems like the early church
Mm-hmm.
does believe it is the body and blood of
Right.
Christ. You know, if you do look at it historically, I'm pretty sure. I don't know. Don't quote me on it, but yeah, that does seem kind of set, whatever. And it does make that like so much more meaningful if it really is the body and blood, because it's like that is you're taking in like perfection, you know,
Mhm.
and that's like that should be great. Like that should be great for you, you know,
Yeah.
because it is like him.
Mhm.
So
And one of the things with that is, so we have two different kinds of sin in Catholicism. There's mortal sin and venial
okay,
sin.
yeah, this one threw me off a little bit
Yeah.
too.
It's
Yeah,
kind of a lot to take in
yeah,
at first,
yeah.
but mortal sin is just anything that you do that's a grave matter and you do it willingly and it's really, really bad.
Mm,
And so those are on your conscience. They're like somebody drew a giant X on you and we're
yeah.
like, you messed up, bro. And if you die with a mortal sin on your conscience, you go to hell immediately. And the only way to remove mortal sin is to go to confession and to speak them out loud to the priest who is speaking as in place of Jesus. Like Jesus is speaking through him. And so you just confess your sins to Jesus in your confession, and then you're wiped clean because you confess them, you say them out loud. And venial sins are just little things you do, like when you stub your toe and you accidentally say a swear word. You're like,
Yeah.
I didn't mean to. You didn't do that willingly. It's just something small. You didn't hurt anybody by doing that. So they're just little things. And those are removed when you go to Mass. So in the Mass, we say a prayer like, brothers and sisters, forgive me for my sins.
Yeah.
And so you say this little prayer, and that wipes away your venial sin. But the only way to get rid of mortal sin is to go into confession. And so taking the body and the blood, when you have mortal sins on your conscience, is a mortal sin because you're taking that perfection into a body that's like bad, I guess you could say. Mortal sin and venial sin are so scary when you're like a 5-year-old and people are telling you that you shouldn't do bad things. It's so scary. But as you get older, it kind of makes sense. And confession is also so scary the first couple times you do it, because you're scared to say the things that you've done aloud to a person who you see, because they're your priest and they know your voice. And so you're always like, oh my gosh, that's really scary. But after a while, you get used to it. And it's like, you're not talking to the priest, you're talking to Jesus. He's just sitting there as a fill-in to guide you through what you're supposed to be saying.
What is it called? Like persona Christi or something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like, you'd have to kind of remember that like, you're not talking to him. He's barely even listening. He's just there to guide you and to have Jesus in that room, kind of thing. So I think that that's important to remember with that. But yeah, when you take that perfection in, you have to be clean. You have to wipe away that sin and confess your sin.
Yeah, I think the first time I like heard the mortal and venial thing, like especially the mortal, because I was like, wait, like this, like I don't know, you're cut off from God, like I don't know. I was like this.
It's a little bit dramatic, I think.
Yeah, I don't know. I was like, this sounds like, I don't know. This doesn't sound like what I believe in. Like really, like I don't know. I guess that's how it was for me.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how it is for like.
I don't 100% agree with a lot of mortal sin stuff. Like, we've talked a lot about mortal sins when I was growing up in religious ed, and they talk about like where the line is between venial and mortal.
Yeah.
But some mortal sins, like not going to mass, is a mortal sin.
Mm-hmm.
And that to me is.
Oh, was that actually?
Yeah. In some people's eyes, I don't know exactly where to find the true source of what my mortal sin is, but there's like 3 rules. It said it has to be a grave matter, so it has to be like really, really bad. So like killing somebody purposefully, because that's the second thing, is you need to be doing it with a clear mind. You're doing it because you want to. So like one of the things that we always talked about was like, if somebody held a gun to your head and said do this, and it's a mortal sin, and you do it, it's not a mortal sin to you because somebody forced you to do it. But if you're just doing it for fun, you're going out and committing mortal sins for fun because you want to, then it's a mortal sin. So there's like a lot of fine lines in sins that get really messy. And
is that like a church teaching, or like I don't know, I guess like, okay, I guess if I do talk to like a very well-versed Catholic, I'm sure there will be verses.
I was gonna say, I think somebody else could give you more information on it. I couldn't.
I'm sure verses will be brought up, and then
we just learned about it in religious ed with no like verse background. They just said, this is what we believe, and then you just have to kind of follow it blindly. And so you're like, okay.
Yeah, I guess like, yeah, I guess somebody could probably show me verses and be like, here, this is where it talks about mortal sin, or this is where it talks about venial sin. And like, I'm pretty sure like I've been showed those verses, but it still sounds very, it sounds iffy to me. And like,
it sounds iffy to me too. And I've been practicing it my whole life.
It just sounds iffy to me because it's like, if you just like mess up once and then suddenly die, and then you do commit a mortal sin, right? But you believe in Jesus, and you just happen to let the flesh get the best of you, and then you go to hell. Like, I don't know. That just doesn't.
And it also feels gross too, because you have to have the priest in order to confess. So if the priest isn't readily available to you, how are you supposed to confess that? And not all churches have like open confession times. Like sometimes they only have them before mass, but they're like 30 minutes before mass. So you have to get there 30 minutes before it even starts. And then you have to wait for all the other people to go. And then maybe there's not enough time. And then like, that's just one of those things that I'm like, I think confession's an aid, but I think mortal sins is just like a gray area of faith for me, that I'm like, I don't know if that's something that I completely believe in, because that just feels like something that's not very, like, that's not bringing you closer to Jesus. So it just feels like we're supposed to act better, but I think that just confessing your sins to Jesus is enough to save you from that, or confessing them in the church when you say the prayer at the beginning. But I don't know, it's very wishy-washy to me, and it changes based on who you ask, so it's very like,
yeah, I don't know. I guess when I learned about it, I was like, wait, like, am I like am I on my way to hell?
Yeah,
I didn't commit, or I didn't like confess of this mortal sin, and like I haven't really had I guess I've had the opportunity, but I grew up like Protestant,
Yeah.
so it's like,
So then it's like, are all of the other Christians gonna go to hell because they didn't follow the same thing that we follow? Like,
yeah. So I was like, I don't know,
mind-boggling
I
to
learned
me.
about it, I was a little worried. I was like,
Yeah,
wait,
it's very scary.
but yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know everything, and
Yeah, me neither. I'm not a Catholicism expert.
uh,
I
I
only
mean,
know
if
as
it's
much as
true,
I've
like if
tried.
it's true, I want to believe it,
Yeah,
but yeah, I mean,
it's
I
one of
guess,
those things that you have to like. You say, if this is true, Jesus, like show me that it's true.
yeah, yeah,
But
but
and purgatory was also super scary to learn about too, because you're like, you grow up with just the two, and then in like once you're old enough to finally understand it, they're like, oh, also there's this third option that you didn't know about until right now, and that's probably where you're gonna end up because nobody's perfect, and the only way to get to heaven is to be perfect. And so then you're stuck in this little other space, which is basically just like Earth, but like even
or
less, I think.
it's like you're gonna be in this place where like you're gonna be like refined through fire or
Yeah.
something. Like you're,
It's like you have to cleanse yourself, and so while
yeah,
you're in purgatory, you have to fix whatever you did wrong, and people on earth have to pray for you. Otherwise, you're not getting through. That's the other scary thing is like people on earth have to be praying for you to make it through or you won't make it. And so I think that's another thing that was really hard for me to wrap my mind around, but then as I got older, they started to explain it more as it's a place for you to get ready to see Jesus. It's like you are preparing yourself and making yourself better to see him, but it's still one of those wishy-washy gray areas of Catholicism that I'm
because I
like,
actually I went to a Catholic Bible study, and I did see like verses
that
or
talk about purgatory. Yeah.
or verses that these people claims talk about
Right. Yeah.
purgatory at least, and maybe they do, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if they do, then I'd want to eventually like understand that
Yeah.
more and know it. But yeah, it's like interesting. It's very, very interesting because there's a lot of places. I don't know. There's just like a lot of things that it doesn't seem like it's there, but like
Mm-hmm.
when you look into like these Catholic beliefs, like people can like string together like these verses and like kind of someone make a case for things, it seems like, but I'm not exactly sure how true like any of that
Right.
stuff is, but yeah,
Like one person can completely change the faith if they wanted to by
yeah.
just claiming something and having some things to back it up. So yeah, sometimes the things are a little hard to believe in Catholicism, which is why I'm like, maybe I'm on my way out. I'm not sure.
But I don't know. I mean, I guess like where I'm at now is like, okay, I'm just like Christian,
Yep.
but
Yep.
I want to learn more about like every
Mm.
I want to learn more about Catholicism, right? And actually I want to learn more about like Orthodoxy too.
Yeah.
But like I want to believe like what Jesus believed, of course, and
Mhm.
like I want to believe like what the apostles believed
Yeah.
pretty much. I mean, I'm definitely they weren't perfect. Like of course I want to like truly believe what Jesus wanted
Yeah.
me to believe, but I'd say like for myself, I need to go and look at, okay, like what did the early church like actually believe,
Mm. Yeah.
and right, maybe they weren't 100% right on everything, but I'm sure they were more right
Yeah.
on a lot of things than not, or at least
Like
they
what
were,
things have been misconstrued over the
yeah, or they were
years.
so like they were that much closer to Jesus and
Yeah.
like time wise, that
Right.
it seems like they should have like should have the knowledge of like what the church like should be. And I mean, Catholics do make the claim that that's what their church is, right?
Right.
It is like the original like true church, and like it hasn't been changed and that type of thing. Like that's what Catholics claim. Orthodox will claim the same thing too.
Mm-hmm.
I guess Protestants claim that Orthodox and Catholicism like fell away from their true form. So then Protestants came in and the church got reformed back
Mm-hmm.
to its like original form or what it
Yeah.
was originally supposed to be. So um yeah, I guess like at the end of the day, um you can believe a lot. You can probably believe a lot that's wrong actually, but as long as you believe in the real Jesus Christ,
Mm-hmm.
who died and rose again on the third day for the sins of the world, if you believe in him, right, fully God, fully man, then you are saved,
Yeah.
right? So,
Amen. For real.
but yeah, I'd say at the end of the day, that's all I know that's true.
Yeah.
So anything else, I don't know. I guess it can be debated
Right.
among all the denominations.
Right.
But yeah, so do you have anything else? Or
No, I
no?
think I'm all good.
You're all good. Did I end that well? Kind of. Did I bring that together in a good
You did.
spot? Yeah. I don't know. I'm definitely. I don't know if I'd ever like become like Catholic or Orthodox. I think
It's also like almost impossible to become Catholic if you weren't raised Catholic. Like if you weren't
yeah.
born Catholic, you have to go through like classes in order to become Catholic.
Yeah. It yeah, it would take a lot,
Yeah,
and
it
I
really
would
would.
need like an intense and an immense amount of convincing.
Right.
Um, but yeah, I'd say like I agree with a lot of Catholic beliefs, and
Mhm.
right, like I think the Orthodox Church believes all the same things the Catholic Church believes and
Mhm.
whatnot. So I'd say like yeah, I'd say I'm like somewhat Catholic
Yeah,
or
where
what
all
or
of the Catholicism and like Orthodoxy like lines up, but
yeah.
it's all that other stuff that you're kind of like,
Yeah, I say I'm like
and I'm in the
somewhat
same boat. I
yeah.
get it.
So yeah, I don't know if I can like ever fully get with it,
Hmm.
but I don't know. Like I have to dive in and like figure that out for myself.
Yeah,
But yeah, it's not.
and the only person who can make that decision is you.
Yeah, that's true. Cause like somebody can like talk to you about it, or you can try to convince somebody, but it really comes down to like you kind of have to take that step for yourself and find out. So yeah, I don't know if I'd ever really make the leap, but definitely.
And that's fair. I
Yeah,
get it.
and I mean that leap's not necessary for
Yeah.
salvation, right? Like
Right.
you don't have to you only have to like really know and believe one thing to make it to heaven, which is like just believe that Jesus Christ truly is the
Yeah.
Son of God, truly is God, and truly did come down and die for the sins of the world, and that he truly did rise again, and
Hmm.
that he was God, and like that's what you need. That
Yeah.
like that's it right there. So and yeah, you could know nothing else in life, but if you know that and believe it, then you're good. So yeah. So yeah, it's not about what you don't have to know everything. You just have to know that. So
Right.
but yeah, I don't really have anything else.
Me
If
neither.
you're good, if
I'm good.
you're good. All right, well, I don't know. That was a good discussion. I'm sure me and you disagree on some things,
Yeah.
but which is fine. You know, that's human nature. But yeah, I don't know. I guess it is interesting
Hmm.
to talk about Catholicism and
Yeah.
like saints and purgatory and like all that stuff.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. But yeah, well, we're good to cut it off. All right, well, thanks for watching the Morris InterVarsity Podcast. I'm the host Joseph, and I'm here with,
Maddie Magus.
and we can, yeah, we'll end it at that. Jesus loves you, and yeah, we'll see you next time.